The enemy armada lingered in the abyss of space, their polished vessels arrayed in a blockade around the embattled world of Vlok. For generations, the Vashari Dominion had dominated this sector with merciless resolve, enslaving the weak, crushing uprisings, and expanding their empire with cold precision. They had never known fear, not until now. Not until humanity appeared. The UN Nemesis drifted into the void, a leviathan of war wrought from Earth's unyielding defiance. It was unlike anything the Vashari had faced, twice the size of their mightiest dreadnought, its hull scarred from 100 campaigns, bristling with armaments capable of dismantling entire armadas. The name Nemesis spread in hushed tones among alien crews, a harbinger of annihilation. From its bridge, Admiral Elias Varian stood, hands clasped firmly behind his back, eyes locked on the viewscreen. The Vashari fleet was vast, 300 warships encircling his solitary battleship. By every measure of logic, measures impossible. Except humanity had never concerned itself with logic when it came to war. "Admiral," Commander Sarah Holt said, her voice unwavering, "they're hailing us." Varian drew a slow breath. "Let them speak." The screen shifted, revealing the visage of a reptilian figure clad in ceremonial armor, golden scales glinting in the dim light. High Warlord Kesh of the Vashari Dominion glared with open disdain. "Humans," Kesh hissed. "You defy the Dominion, yet stand alone. Surrender your vessel, and I may grant your kind a merciful death." Varian gave a low chuckle, shaking his head. "You don't understand, do you?" His tone was almost playful. "We are not here to bargain." Kesh's slitted gaze darkened. "Then you have sealed your fate." Varian's brow arched. "No, Warlord, you have." With a subtle nod, he gave the order. "Fire." The Nemesis awoke like a beast unchained. Its primary cannon an experimental weapon forged to harness the fury of a dying star, unleashed a torrent of blinding white energy. The first Vashari battleship struck, did not merely explode, it unraveled. Atoms ripped apart in silence. The rest had only seconds before the Nemesis unleashed its fury. Railguns thundered, their slugs screaming through shields as if they were mist. Squadrons of autonomous drones swarmed into the fray, darting between Vashari hulls, shredding them with ruthless precision. Kesh's expression shifted from scorn to horror. "Impossible. One ship cannot. One human warship is all it takes." Varian cut him off, voice colder than the void. "You should have remembered that when we burned your last colony to ash, it wasn't battle. It was slaughter." One after another, Vashari ships burst into fire and ruin. Escape pods were disregarded. Mercy was absent. Humanity knew too well. What the Dominion did with captives' colonies turned to labor camps. Civilians dissected, children stolen, never returned. This was no war. This was vengeance. Varian stood silent as the Dominion fleet disintegrated, its command fracturing into chaos. The Vashari had long believed themselves apex predators of the stars, but they had never faced humanity in war. And humanity never forgave. As the final enemy vessel detonated in a silent inferno, Varian's gaze fell to the planet below. Vlok, the so-called fortress world, home to billions, once a symbol of Dominion power, now nothing more than a target. "Sir." Holt hesitated. "Orders?" Varian's voice carried no hesitation. "Glass it." The Nemesis obeyed. Its final act began with a storm of orbital fire. Cities became craters. Forests turned to cinders. Rivers boiled into vapor. Intercepted transmissions carried the screams of the Vashari until even those fell silent, leaving only ruin. Another wasteland, like the countless human colonies the Dominion had erased. Varian turned from the screen. "Set course for the next Dominion world," he commanded. "This war ends only when they beg for extinction." And so the Nemesis slipped into the void, leaving fire and silence in its wake. The Leviathan moved on through the abyss, its vast frame gliding almost soundlessly toward its next prey. The bridge was quiet, unnervingly calm, though they had just consigned Vlok to ash. The enemy's cries had already faded into the static of war. Admiral Varian stood still, watching the void beyond the reinforced glass. His own reflection looked foreign now, features sharpened, hardened, stripped of anything but command. Peace was long dead, a lie the Dominion had wielded while grinding its heel on Earth's throat. "Sir," Commander Holt's voice broke the silence. "Next target is Tryon 7. Intelligence marks it as a major supply hub for their core fleets." Varian didn't turn. "Estimated population?" Holt paused. "Roughly 20 million. The bridge seemed to tighten, the weight of that number settling over them, soldiers, workers, children. For a breath, humanity clawed at their conscience. "Good," Varian said at last. "If we cut their supply lines, we cut their war." Holt only nodded. She had stood at Varian's side since the first retaliation, had witnessed every atrocity the Dominion inflicted on humanity. Mercy had no place here. Mercy had been the weakness that let the Dominion thrive unchecked, that cost Earth its colonies. A transmission cut through the stillness. "Incoming message, sir," an officer reported. "From the Dominion. High Warlord Kesh survived. He wishes to speak." Varian smirked. "Patch him through." The screen flickered, revealing Kesh once more. His golden scales no longer gleamed with arrogance, only fury barely masking fear. "You will suffer for this, human," he spat. "The Dominion does not fall so easily." Varian leaned closer, eyes like steel. "It already has. You just haven't seen it yet. You are monsters." Kesh roared. Varian gave a laugh, empty of humor. "Monsters, you enslaved us, burned our worlds, stole our children, and now when we answer in kind, you whimper? No, Warlord, you forged this war. We're only finishing it." Kesh's claws flexed. "Humanity will not survive. The Dominion will strike back." "You won't get the chance," Varian cut in, his voice sharp as a blade. "This isn't survival. This is extermination." Kesh's face twisted with rage, but Varian silenced him with a flick of his hand, cutting the transmission. "Prepare the Hellstorm missiles," he ordered. "I want Tryon 7 erased from the maps." No one protested. The Nemesis surged forward, humanity's wrath carried across the stars. Ahead lay Tryon 7. A world of steel and industry, its surface buried beneath shipyards and refineries, a planet that fed the Dominion's endless war. Not just another target. This was the beating heart of their expansion, a hub built on the suffering of enslaved races. But today, it would burn. On the bridge, Varian studied the tactical display. Thousands of vessels filled Tryon 7's orbit transports, supply barges, battleships still in dry dock. The defense fleet here was smaller than at Vlok. The Dominion had never expected anyone to strike. "So deep that assault a mistake status of the Hellstorm missiles," Varian asked, his voice calm, greater than fully Armeden ready. "Commander Holt confirmed we can wipe out the planet's atmosphere in a single strike." Varian nodded. "Fire." The Nemesis came alive from its underbelly, massive silos opened, and the Hellstorm payloads were launched. Hundreds of missiles streaked toward Tryon 7, each one containing a payload. Designed not for precision, but for annihilation. Planetary shields flared tow life, but it was futile. The missiles didn't aim for cities, they detonated in the upper atmosphere. The sky turned red, then black, as firestorms swept across the world below. The surface of Tryon 7 descended into chaos. Factories crumbled. Supply depots exploded, and the massive orbital shipyards broke apart, sending flaming debris crashing down on the cities below. Smoke choked the air, blocking out the sun. The Dominion forces tried to fight back. A swarm of defense ships circled toward the Nemesis, desperate to protect their crumbling world. "Incoming enemy fire," an officer reported. "Deploy the drones, return fire." The swarm of enemy ships barely made it halfway before the Nemesis responded. Drone fighters surged forth, moving like a plague of mechanical death, cutting through the enemy ranks with brutal efficiency. The ship's railgun sand laser batteries opened fire, slicing apart the Dominion's defense forces as if they were Nothing more than insects on the surface. The Dominion's command centers sent out desperate distress calls, messages flooded into the human battleship pleading for surrender, for mercy, for anything other than what was coming. Varen ignored them all. "You never showed us mercy," he muttered under his breath. He watched as the planet turned to ash. Tryon 7 was no longer a world, it was a graveyard. Silence fell over the bridge, save for the hum of the ship's systems. The battle was over. There was no celebration, no cheers of victory, only the cold realization that this war had no end, no until the Dominion itself was nothing more than a whisper in history. Varen exhaled, set course for the next target. The Nemesis disappeared into the void, leaving behind only smoke, ruin, and the dying screams of an empire. The silence on the bridge of the Nemesis was deafening. No one spoke, no one moved. The screen still showed the burning wreckage of Tryon 7, the massive industrial world reduced to a wasteland. In mere hours, even from orbit, the scars were visible craters where entire cities once stood, firestorms raging through the ruins. The once thriving supply hub of the Dominion was now nothing more than a drifting corpse. Admiral Elias Varian let out a slow breath. There was no satisfaction in what they had done, no joy, only necessity. "They're calling us monsters," Commander Holt said quietly, reading interested Dominion transmissions. "Their military channels are in chaos. Some are calling for a loot rotation. Others," she has hesitated, "others are already speaking of surrender." Varen scoffed. "Surrender after what they did to US number? They don't get that opt." Through the screen flickered, and a Talani diplomat appeared, a tall, Avonlake creature with silver feathers and piercing golden eyes. "Admiral Varian, the Tani envoy," began, his voice smooth, calculated. "We have watched this conflict unfold, and we are gayo to reconsider your actions. The Dominion has suffered enough." Varen raised an eyebrow. Enough. His voice was laced with quiet anger. "Were you there when the Dominion burned our colonies, when they slaughter our people like cattle? Where was your intervention?" Then the Tani envoy didn't flinch. "We understand your anger, Admiral, but this war has reached a turning point. If you continue, it will not be war, it will be extermination." Varian leaned forward, his gaze cold and unwavering. "That's the idea." A long silence. The Tani envoy studied him, as if searching for something, some hint of hesitation, some remnant of humanity's old self before war had changed them, but there was none. "Admiral," the envoy finally said, "the galaxy is watching. If you destroy the Dominion completely, humanity will not be seen as liberators. You will be seen as conquerors, and one day someone will rise to do to you what you are doing to them." Varen smirked, but there was no humor in it. "Let them try." The Skur green cut to black. The transmission ended. The bridge was silent. No one questioned the Admiral's decision. No one argued. They had all lost too much to care about diplomacy now. Holt shifted uncomfortably. "Do you think the other empires will intervene?" Varian sighed. "They won't move unless we make them, and by the time they decide, it will already be too late." The Nemesis jumped to streaking through the stars like a shadow of death. Yeast Prime awaited. The Nemesis emerged from FTL like a phantom of destruction, slipping into the orbit of JIS Prime, one of the Dominion's core worlds. This wasn't some distant colony or supply hub. It was a beating heart of the Dominion Empire, a world teeming with billions of their kind. It was their pride, their history, their culture, and soon it would burn. Admiral Varian stood at the command console, watching the massive, planet-filled bridge's viewport. Just Prime was beautiful in its own way, covered in sprawling cities with towering spires of obsidian and gold. Their structures were sleek. Their technology advanced, but beneath all the grandeur, it was still home of slavers and tyrants. Commander Holt exhaled sharply. "Hailing us, sir." High Chancellor Reka himself, the Dominion's leader, Varianid, put him through. The screen flickered to life, revealing Rakus, a towering reptilian figure with dark emerald scales and piercing yellow eyes. Unlike Warlord Keshu had snarled and spat threats, Ryu sat calmly in his ornate throne, watching Varan with a calculated expression. "Admiral Varan," Rethus said smoothly, "you stand at the gates of my world. What will you do?" Varian's face weighs motionless. "What I have done to every world before this. Ryuz nodded, as if he had expected that answer. We underestimated you. We saw humanity as a lesser species. Wek divided, but now I see something else. I see a force that even the Dominion cannot contain. Varine tilted his head slightly. If you're about to beg, don't waste my time. The Dominion leader lips curled into something resembling a smirk. Beg number, but I will offer you something no human leader has ever had before. Dominion surrender. A murmur ran through the bridge crew. Even Holt's usual easy demeanor cracked for a moment. Varian's eyes narrowed. Explain. Rackus leaned forward. Ward, withdraw your forces. Stop your war. In return, we will recognize humanity as an equal power. The Dominion will cease all hostilities, return all human prisoners, and sign a non-aggression pact that will last for generations. Silence. It was everything humanity had fought for. Everything the war had been about. The nightmare could finally end with Earth victorious, with humanity free. Varen exhaled slowly, his expression unreadable. And what about justice? Rackus blinked. Justice for the billions you enslaved, the colonies you burned, the families you ripped apart. Varian said, his voice calm but razor sharp. You expect us to just shake hands and move on? The Dominion leader hesitated for a moment, then spread his clawed hands. We cannot change the past, Admiral, but we can shape the future. If you destroy us now, you do not just kill an empire. You create a vacuum, and something worse will rise to fill it. You think yourself the harbinger of justice, but tell me, when does justice become vengeance? Varian stared at him unblinking. For a moment something flickered in his expression, something almost human, then it was gone. We passed the line between justice and vengeance a long time ago, Varian said quietly. Holt stiffened. Sir, are you saying fire the Hellstorm missiles? A final silence. The death of diplomacy, Admiral Rackus said, his voice quieter. Now not do this. Varian held his gaze. Goodbye, Chancellor. The screen cut off. The missiles launched. Just Prime Skytern to fire. The planet's defense grid erupted in a desperate attempt to intercept the incoming devastation. But it was useless. The Nemesis had planned for this. Humanity had perfected planetary extermination. Explosions rippled across the world. Towers collapsed. Entire cities were swallowed by firestorms. Billions screamed. And then the screams faded into static. The Nemesis did not wait to watch the final moment. As the planet burned behind them, Varen turned away, set course for the Dominion home world. It was almost over. The Nemesis tore through the void, a specter of death on its final approach. The Dominion homeworld, Corin Prime, lay ahead, a planet that had ruled the galaxy for centuries. An empire shirt now awaiting the fate of those before it. The end had come. Admiral Varian stood at the bridge, his expression carved from stone. The fiery wreckage of Just Prime still burned in his mind. But there was no regret, no hesitation. The war had started long ago with Dominion warships glassing human colonies, reducing entire civilizations to slaves. Now humanity was merely repaying the debt in full. Enemy fleet detected. Commander Holt reported their last line of defense, estimated 3-0 ships, all converging on our position. Varian exhaled. All that's left of their once mighty armada. Korean Prime had thrown everything into this final stand. Battleships, cruiser, swarms of fighters. The Dominion had ruled through force and fare for centuries, but now faced with extinction, they had no choice but to fight to the last. They're hailing us, Lieutenant Morrow said. Let me guess. Varian muttered more pleas for mercy. No, Sir, Morrow said, voice grim. They say they will fight to the last warrior. No surrender. A smirk played at the corner of Varian's lips. For once they understand us. A moment of silence settled over Thebridge. There was no need for grand speeches, no need for theatrics. Everyone aboard the Nemesis knew what they were about to. This was not a battle. This was an execution. Engage. The void ignited. The Nemesis moved like a predator, its weapons ripping through the Dominion fleet with precision and brutality. Drone swarms danced through the battlefield, cutting apart enemy fighters like insects trapped in a storm. Railgun thundered, spewing tungsten slugs at near speeds, shattering hulls like paper. Dominion ships fought back with everything they had. Plasma beams lanced through the darkness. Missile barrages rained toward the Nemesis. But it was hopeless. Humanity's warship was a fortress of destruction, its defense unbreakable, its firepower unmatched. Varen watched as the enemy fleet crumbled one by one. Their battleships fell, command ships detonated in blinding flashes. Their crews silenced in an instant. Some Dominion vessels, seeing the inevitability of defeat, tried to flee. The Nemesis did not allow it. No survivors. Varian ordered torpedoes chased down the stragglers, turning their ships into floating wreckage. The Dominion had once terrorized the Star Snow. Their greatest fleet was nothing more than debris and Corran. Prime laid fenceless. Prepare the Hellstorm missiles, Varen commanded. Holt hesitated. Seer, there are billions down there. Civilians. Varian's jaw tightened. Did these spare ours? Holt said nothing. She knew the answer. The missiles launched Corran. Prime's atmosphere turned to fire the planet's great cities, monuments to an empire that had enslaved Specious Akros. The stars collapsed beneath waves of destruction. Plasma storms erupted, oceans boiled, the land itself cracked under the weight of devastation. Humanity had not just won the war, they had erased the Dominion from existence. Varen turned away from the screen. It's done, he said quietly. Silence filled the bridge. The war that had defined their generation, that had burned through entire civilizations, was over for the first time in history. Humanity stood alone as the dominant force in the galaxy. Varian let out a slow breath. There was no victory song, no celebration, just the quiet hum of the Nemesis as it disappeared into the stars, leaving nothing but ash in its wake. The void of space stretched endlessly before them, vast and indifferent. Nemesis drifted in silence, its weapons cooling its mission complete. Corran. Prime, once the heart of the Dominion, was now a graveyard, a smoldering ruin where billions had drawn their final breath. No cries remained, no fleets, no desperate last stands. Humanity had finished what it started. Admiral Varian stood at Thebridge, staring at the dead world below. He had imagined this moment for years, had envisioned vengeance, the thrill of triumph, the satisfaction of knowing humanity had avenged its dead. But now, looking at the barren wasteland they had created, their wastenly emptiness, Holt approached him cautiously. Sir, we've intercepted transmissions across the galaxy. The other empires, they've seen what we've done. Varian didn't turn to Heron. She hesitated. Fear. Some are calling for an alliance against us. Others are resilient, watching, waiting. Varian closed his eyes briefly. Of course, this was inevitable. Humanity had not just destroyed an enemy, they had reshaped the balance of power. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless species, some stronger, some weaker, all now forced to reevaluate their place. They fear us, Holt continued, lowering her voice. They see what we're capable of. Varen exhaled. Good silence lingered between them, thick and heavy. What now? Holt finally asked. We've won. There's no one left to fight. Varen turned away from the viewport, his expression unreadable. There will always be someone left to fight across the galaxy. Distant empires whispered in fear. Governments held secret meetings debating whether humanity was now the greatest threat to existence itself. Some would submit, others would prepare for war. It didn't matter. Humanity had risen, and it would never bow again. The Nemesis cut through the darkness of space, moving like a silent wraith. The war was over. The Dominion, Thegreet empire that had once ruled the galaxy, was now nothing but dust and ruin. And yet the galaxy did not celebrate, it trembled. Varian stood at the command console, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of known star systems. One by one reports trickled in from human intelligence networks, alien fleets mobilizing, fortifications being reinforced, uneasy truce between long-standing enemies forming. The message was clear. The galaxy was terrified. Humanity was no longer a minor species fighting for survival. It was now the dominant force, the apex predator among the stars, and the rest of the galaxy was trying to decide whether to submit or strike first. Commander Holt approached, her expression tight. We receiving diplomatic messages from multiple species, some airy congratulating us, some are less diplomatic. Varen smirked. Let me guess, they call us monsters. Holt nodded. Some are calling us the butchers of Corran, others are demanding answers. They want to know if we intend to conquer them next. Varen let out a slow breath, his fingers tapping against the console. And what do you think, Commander? Holt hesitated. I think they're scared, sir. I think they believe we'll do to them what we did to the Dominion. Varian turned his gaze towards the viewport, watching the endless stretch of space he had spent his entire career fighting a war for survival, for vengeance. Now that the war was over, he wasn't sure what was left. We send a message back, he said finally. Holt straightened. What do we tell them? Varian's expression was cold, unreadable. We tell them the truth. Humanity will not start wars, but if they raise a hand against us, we will finish them. Holt gave a slow nod. Understood. She turned to relay the message, but before she could take a step, another alert flashed on the screen. Sir, Morrow called out from the comm station. We're detecting a large-scale energy surge in deep space. Unknown origin. Varian frowned. Explain. Mar hands moved swiftly across the controls, analyzing the data. It's not a fleet, not a weapon, it's something different. A gravitational anomaly forming outside of mapped star systems. Whatever it is, it's big. Varian's brow furrowed. How big? Morrow hesitated. Large enough to destabilize spacetime. In the surrounding systems, this isn't just some anomaly, it's a rupture. The bridge went silent. Varian exchanged a glance with Holt. They had fought the Dominion, crushed their empire, and now, just as the war had ended, something new was emerging. Location? Varian asked. Far beyond any explorer territory. Morrow answered. Deep space past the galactic rim. Varian nodded slowly. Then we investigate. Prepare the fleet. Holt stiffened. Sir, we just ended on War 4. Are we really about to rush head first into another unknown? Varian turned to her, Heiss expression calm but resolute. We didn't survive the Dominion just to cower in the dark. Whatever's out there, we face it. The Nemesis adjusted course, its engines roaring to life. Humanity had won the war. Now it was time to see what lay beyond. The Nemesis moved through the void, its engines humming softly as it ventured into uncharted space. Behind it, a fleet of humanity's finest warships followed in tight formation, silent, prepared, watching. The war with the Dominion was over, but now something new loomed ahead. The anomaly. Admiral Varian stood at the bridge, his gaze locked on the holographic display. The readings were unlike anything they had encountered before. A gravitation rift larger than any known celestial body pulsed at the edge of the galaxy. Space itself seemed to ripple around it, distorting the fabric of reality. Status? Varian asked. Commander Holt, standing beside him, shook her head. Still no known origin, no signals, no transmissions, just energy and a lot of it. Lieutenant Morrow, stationed at the sensor console, leaned forward. Sir, we're detecting movement within the anomaly. Varian's eyes narrowed. Define movement. Morrow's fingers danced across the controls, pulling up. Enhanced visuals display flickered, revealing a swirling mass of darkness. Then something shifted. Shadows coalesced into shapes unnatural, and massive silhouettes of what could unlive ships emerging from the distortion. Everyone on the bridge froze. Unknown vessels detected. Morrow confirmed, her voice tight. Sizing possible. Some of them are larger than entire cities. The Nemesis had faced behemoth-class Dominion warships before, but this was different. These things were not just large, they were unnatural, shifting between states of solidity and void, as if the laws of physics barely applied to them. A voice crackled over the fleet-wide comms. This is Captain Darnell of the Vanguard. What the hell are we looking at? Varian stared at the screen. Something old. Holt swallowed hard. Sir, they're moving toward us. Varian clenched his jaw. Comes. Try to hail them. Morrow initiated an open frequency transmission. This is the United Terran Navy. Identify yourselves. Silence. Then a sound, not words, not static, a deep resonant noise like a chorus of voices speaking in layered frequencies. It wasn't a language, it was something deeper, something felt rather than heard, a presence pressing into their minds. The bridge crew stiffened. Morrow shuddered, clutching her head. I can't cut transmission. Varian ordered immediately. The sound stopped, but a lingering ease remained in the air. Holt exhaled sharply. Sir, what the hell was that? Varian didn't answer. His instincts screamed that whatever lay beyond that rift was not something humanity had ever encountered before, not even in myths. Noten, the oldest of alien records. This was beyond the Dominion, beyond war. This was something ancient. Energy spike. Morrow yelled their recharging weapons. The bridge exploded into action. Alarms blared as the massive shadow ship surged forward. their forms twisting through space with unnatural speed. All ships' battle stations, Varan commanded open fire, the Nemesis unleashed. Hell railguns fired in rapid succession, spewing tungsten slugs at near light-speed plasma batteries roared, sending superheated destruction toward the incoming threat. The fleet followed, weapons lighting up the void. For a moment it seemed like humanity would do what it always did, fight, conquer, serve. Then the shadows struck back, lances of pure blackness lashed out, consuming light itself. The first wave of human ships was torn apart, their hulls crumbling into nothingness before even registering damage. A Dominion fleet would have been obliterated instantly, but humanity was not the Dominion adaptive shielding. Varan barked redirect energy to defensive arrays. The Nemesis shifted its barriers, reforming in real time, countering the unknown energy signatures. The surviving ships did the same, holding formation, learning humanity was adaptable, it always had been. The battle raged in the abyss, fire and darkness clashing. The Nemesis weaved between attacks, countering with overwhelming firepower, but for every enemy vessel destroyed, more emerged from the rift. Holt's face was pale. "Sir, there's no end to them," Varian gritted. His teeth. They had destroyed the Dominion. Now they were fighting something even worse. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't sure if humanity would survive. The void was a battleground of fire and shadow. Humanity's fleet fought with relentless fury, adapting, countering, surviving, but the enemy was endless. For every shadow ship torn apart by the Nemesis's guns, more emerged from the rift, shifting between dimensions, absorbing damage that should have obliterated them. Admiral Varan gripped the console, his mind racing. He had never faced an enemy like this. Not even the Dominion had possessed such unnatural excellence. Humanity had waged war across the stars, but this was something different, something beyond war. Shields at 30%, Holt called out, her voice tight with urgency. "If we don't retreat, we can't retreat." Varian cut her off. "If we run, they follow, and if they reach human space, we lose everything." A moment of silence hung between them, heavy and suffocating. The reality was sinking in. The fleet couldn't win this battle, not in a conventional sense. Morrow's voice cracked over the Gauser. "The rift. There's a destabilization occurring." Varian turned sharply, exhaling. Morrow's hands moved rapidly across the controls. "It's like their presence is tied to the anomaly. It's their entry point. If we overload it, we'll cut them off." Varan finished understanding, donning. Holt's expression darked. "And how exactly do we do that?" Varian's gaze flickered to the status of Nemesis. The ship was battered, its shields flickering, its weapons burning hot, but its core was still intact. Humanity's warships were built for devastati.